reptilians and the Council of 13. The reptilian aliens and the Council of 13 royal families. The leader of the Earth's Illuminatie is called the Pindar. The Pindar is a member of one of the 13 ruling Illuminati families and is always male. The title Pindar is an abbreviated term for pinnacle of the Draco, also known as the penis of the dragon. Symbolically, this represents the top of power, control, creation, penetration, expansion, invasion, and fear. The holder of this rank reports to the purebred reptilian leader in the inner earth. Recently, there are reports that the Marquis de Lebeau is the Pindar, but this is disinformation. The true current Pindar is the head of the Rothschild family, as has been for several hundred years. Probably Jacob Rothschild. He's based in Germany near Frankfurt. In the late 1970s, he oversaw the sister project to Montauk Project. There's your connection to the CIA and their projects, called MALDA, as an anagram for Montauk Alsace-Lorraine Dimensional Activation. The project was located near the city of Strasbourg, France, historically once part of Germany. Interestingly, there is a winery on the east end of Long Island, not far from Montauk Point, called Pindar Vineyards. This wine is growing in popularity, gaining international accolades. This fits nicely into the plan, as this area will be a part of the capital district of the Earth United Nations and the Empire State. Red wine is symbolic of the blood ingested by the reptilians. The wine can become sanctified, as it did in the Roman Catholic Church, a patsy for the reptilians. In the Catholic Church, wine replaced the blood in ceremony. The Illuminati here on Earth have established a pyramid structure of controlled, identical to the system that exists in the Draco Empire. The pyramid with the reptilian eye located on the American $1 bill is symbolic of this control structure. The eye is the cap on the pyramid, thus explaining why the original surface of the Great Pyramid in Egypt was capped in solid green. The Pindar is represented by the gold cap on the pyramid. The next layer, or eye, on the pyramid represents the 13 ruling families. They are as follows: Rothschild, Bauer or Bauer, Pindar; Bruce, Cavendish or Kennedy; de Medici, Hanover, Habsburg; Krupp, Plantagenet, Rockefeller, Romanoff, Sinclair, Warburg, Windsor. Each of the 13 ruling families is given an area of the earth and or particular function to fulfill on the earth. These particular functions include global finances, military technology development, mind control, religion, and media. Each of the 13 ruling families has a council of 13 as well. So it's basically set up like a corporation. And they're like the board of directors, and then each one of them has different areas, like the media, for example. The controlled mainstream media is controlled by a family or a group of families. The number 13 has great significance to them. They know that there are 12 types of energies that pass through the 10 aspects of God mind. The totality of the 12 energies equals a 13th energy. This is considered the most powerful knowledge. They also know that there are really 13 zodiac signs, not the commonly acknowledged 12. They have kept the 13th hidden for centuries because it is the sign of the dragon. They keep the qualities and traits of this sign secret to avoid giving away clues to the reptilian mind pattern. The next layer is the second in command families who do not support work for the Pindar and 13 ruling families. While all the 13 ruling family members are shapeshifters, all members of the 300 supporting families are not. They do, however, all have a high percentage of reptilian DNA. They are known as the Committee of 300. These families include such notable names as Agnelli, Balliol, Beale, Bell, Bouvier, Bush, Cameron, Campbell, Carnegie, Carrington, Coolidge, Delano, Douglas, Ford, Gardner, Graham, Hamilton, Harriman, Hines, Kuhn, Lindsay, Loeb, Millen, Montgomery, Morgan, Norman, Oppenheimer, Rhodes, Roosevelt, Russell, Savoy, Schiff, Seaton, Spencer, Stewart, Taft, and Wilson. And there are many others. Now, just because a person has that last name, of course, doesn't mean they're a member of the Committee of 300. The Committee of 300 uses many well-known institutions to accomplish their goals, including the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderbergers, Trilateral Commission, Club of Rome, Royal Institute for International Affairs, Mafia, CIA, NSA, Mossad, Secret Services, International Monetary Fund, Federal Reserve, Internal Revenue Service, Interpol, to name a few. All of these are private organizations or corporations set up as public service devices, but this is far from the truth. The Illuminati structure also creates artificial countries to further their goals. Examples of these are the United States, Switzerland, Kuwait, the Soviet Union, Panama, Israel, Italy, Yugoslavia, the United Kingdom, most of Black Africa, all of the Arab countries, and all of the Central and South America. These nations were created to amass wealth for the ruling families and their supporters, to hide or keep their wealth, and to create unstable conditions necessary to start wars or increase military budgets. So it's like they play a Game of Thrones with all of these countries, is what it seems like. 'Cause they sit around a table with all the countries laid out, and then they decide what they're going to do. This country goes to war with this country, blah, blah, blah. And then they manipulate the media to get it to happen. Switzerland was created as a neutral banking center so that Illuminati families would have a safe place to keep their funds without fear of destruction from wars and prying eyes. The United States was established with 13 colonies, one for each of the Illuminati families. And remember, Georgia is the 13th colony. The original flag had 13 stars and still has 13 stripes. The eagle, the symbol of the United States, holds 13 arrows in its talons. The United States is actually a corporate asset of the Virginia Company that was established in 1604 in England with direct involvement of the Rothschilds. The finances of the Rothschilds were necessary to fund the exploration and exploitation of the North American continent. The assets of the Virginia Company, including the United States, are owned by the Holy Roman Empire via the Vatican. This occurred in 1213 when King James gave all English assets to the reptilian Pope Innocent III. Executorship remains with the British royal family, but actual ownership lies with the Roman Catholic Church. The American continent is not named after the Amerigo Vespucci, as you learned in school. The Illuminati would never name a continent, actually two continents, after an Italian mapmaker. The name is actually a combination of words. AM is the Hebrew word for people. AME is also the command form of the Spanish Latin verb to love. ERI or ARI is a Hebrew term for lion. Rika is the feminine form of the Spanish word for rich. Ka is the ancient Egyptian word for soul or spirit force within a body. There are two layers of meanings. The ancient Egypt translates to say the people of the lion with spirit force, hence the pyramid and the all-seeing eye on the $1 bill. The Latinized version translates to say love riches in a feminized physical reality way. This gives an idea of what they had in mind. Take this a step further and one sees the mixture of the feminine Latin eagle ideas with the masculine Hebrew lion ideas. The symbolic statement of America is that it is a combination of Lemuria and Atlantis, a blend of the human Lyra with reptilian Draco. Perhaps the anagram LSD, unilluminated created drug, has a hidden meaning as well. Lyra, Sirius, Draco. The combination of these three civilizations would produce the most powerful technological empire ever known. In 1776, the creation of the United States as an independent nation coincided with the declaration into public existence of the official Illuminati organization by member Adam Weishaupt in Bavaria. Publicly, Weishaupt appeared to be determined to create an organization comprised of the European elite that would uplift mankind. Of course, this was part of an Illuminati global ceremony. The creation for the United States and the Illuminati global ceremony, the creation of the United States and the Illuminati organization were artificial beginnings for public consumption. The United States was the device to be used to bring the Illuminati into public acceptance. Current Illuminati members believe that Adam Weishaupt was a look-alike for George Washington, and it is actually Weishaupt's image that appears on the $1 bill. George Washington was a wealthy slave and plantation owner. He is known to have raped some of his female slaves and used some of the male slaves in ritualistic ceremony. There are many people of the black race who can literally trace their genetics to the founding fathers. George Washington also ordered the building of the Montauk Lighthouse in 1796. There it is right there. This lighthouse included an underground area for supply storage in case of a British coastline invasion. If he had only known that the area would become, or did he, the 13 ruling Illuminati families constantly vie for control amongst themselves. During this time period, the Spanish, British, and French Illuminati all fought to win control over North and South America. The Rothschilds kept these Illuminati factions in line by sending Hessian's troops to monitor the situation. The leaders enjoyed these war games, pitting one against the other to see who would win. The hundreds of thousands of lives lost were meaningless to them. The manifest destiny of the United States was created to expand the territory of the Aryans at the expense of the native populations. As always, the Illuminati seek to destroy native peoples and their cultures. This is an attempt to destroy their knowledge of God-mind, as well as the possibility that the natives will impart this information onto others. Especially important is their need to eliminate native cultures with ancient knowledge of Atlantis and Lyra. The natives that gave them the most problem were the Cherokee Indians, because this tribe retained most of their Atlantean knowledge, even accessing the bare Bigfoot frequency for information. For this reason, these people were uprooted from their homeland in the southern Appalachian Mountains and forcibly marched to Oklahoma on what is now known as the Trail of Tears. Many died along the way. Only a remnant remained in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia. In the north, the vast Iroquois Mohawk Nation was disbanded. The Montauk direct descendants of the Atlanteans, who called their leader Pharaoh, were systematically eliminated. The Rothschilds were aggressively involved with the slave trade from Africa, importing slaves to North and South America as well as the Caribbean. They were very careful not to import blacks from the eastern areas of Ethiopia or Sudan, where the descendants of Solomon were located, instead concentrating on Western and Central Africa for the slave populations. These areas had the pure mixture of Anunnaki and simian genetics and the programming desirable for the Illuminati agenda. The Rothschilds decided that splitting the United States colonies would double their profits, so they politically created and financially supported the Civil War. The Civil War was actually a global ceremonial ritual to bring slavery to its next level. This war allowed the North to win and publicly abolish slavery. The best slaves are the ones who do not realize that they are slaves. This alleviates rebellion and resistance. This was the status immediately following the Civil War. Blacks in the South are still slaves. There is still segregation even in the North. The Illuminati still consider blacks to be second or third class citizens. Only now the slavery is subtle and masked. Note, those in power consider us all useless eaters and have used divide and conquer techniques against us to keep us from uniting. What we all need to keep in mind is that once the bottom of the pyramid unites, the rest will collapse. Since the Civil War, there have been other staged wars that entrenched the trend toward globalization. The Spanish-American War of 1898-1899 acquired more land for the American Illuminati, placing a greater portion of the Earth's surface under American jurisdiction. World War I was designed to change the map of Europe, as well as test German chemical warfare technology for future use. This coincided with the worldwide influenza outbreak designed to reduce the global population. Oh, that sounds familiar. Making control easier, World War I also laid the foundation for the German role in the next war. World War II was a test of the final globalization and extermination projects. It was also designed to test mind control machinations, to test the use of fluoride, which deadens brain activity and slows resistance to authority, to experiment with slave labor, camps, and study the development of resistance, to teach the masses to spy and report on one another. World War II brought three primary goals of the Illuminati to fruition. The first was that hidden Illuminati symbolisms were brought to public attention from the underground strongholds in Tibet and Egypt, such as the swastika and the Ankh. The second was the creation of the State of Israel as a foundation for the New World religion. The last was the creation of nuclear weapons as part of the Illuminati global ceremony. During World War II, the Germans helped to perfect sex slaves as a means of transmitting information amongst the elite. Sex slaves can be either male or female who are sexually programmed using Wilhelm-Reich procedures, which are illegal in the United States but used by the Illuminati and government. These sex slaves deliver messages and keep programmed sleepers in line. The sex slave is downloaded with a message or function through various sexual acts and drugs, which can only be released by repeating the same sexual act with the target or person to be activated. They are trained to know their target's trigger words and trigger events to activate, delete, or change programming. In recent years, several women have come forward claiming to be the sex slaves of globally recognized political figures. Many were used as information couriers between high-level male Illuminati. Usually lookalikes of the political figures are used in the incipient programming as a focal point for the sex slave. The slave is put through a desensitizing process, so there is no pleasure in the sexual act. It is merely a duty to be performed. Many times the slave becomes sexually promiscuous, repeatedly having sex with people who look like the intended target. It is a sad life. By the end of World War II, one of the three major Illuminati global rituals was accomplished. This was the nuclear explosion that took place in 1945 at the 33rd degree parallel as a test for the nuclear attack on Japan. The explosion was symbolic, representing the simultaneous creation and destruction of matter and energy. So the Illuminati were behind practically all the wars, but they're behind the invention of the atomic bomb and Nagasaki and Hiroshima. The year was symbolic as well. In numerology, 1 + 9 is 10, representing the 10 aspects of God-mind. The number 10 further breaks down to 1 + 0 = 1, representing a new beginning. Continuing, 4 + 5 = 9, representing the end of a cycle. Symbolically, the entire event represented the end of a cycle to prepare for a new beginning using the new creation of God-mind out of destruction. Additionally, a cylinder containing material still did not explained by the government was trucked into the nuclear explosion testing. This cylinder was made from pure steel and allegedly was the same physical dimensions as the Kabbalah describes for the creation of golems. Kabbalah is ancient Hebrew metaphysics that has been a staple for the Illuminati for millennia. Golems are artificial beings that are used as a slave force. It is highly probable that this was a symbolic ritual for the creation of the Society of Golems. World War II also allowed the European American Illuminati to destroy the Japanese Illuminati desires of global domination. The Japanese royal family, represented by Emperor Hirohito, have always been ostracized as non-legitimate by the ruling 13 families. The Japanese claim to be direct descendants of Lemurian, purebred reptilians. The European American Illuminati claim that the Japanese Illuminati are descendants from a lower species in the Draco hierarchy. This lower species is considered a worker class without any political clout or influence. The European American Illuminati also claim that East Indians are a lower species in the Draco hierarchy. The 13 ruling families considered light skin and hair to be an elite characteristic. On January 17, 1994, Japan sent a seismic event to California. Exactly 1 year later, on January 17, 1995, the city of Kobe, Japan, was seismically destroyed. Kobe was the home of the Japanese electromagnetic weaponry systems. The European American Illuminati will not tolerate thorns in their sides. The destruction of Japan and its royal family will continue in the coming months and years. Every year, the Illuminati hold meetings to plan the events of the coming year to accomplish their main objective, formulated millennia ago, of global control and domination. In the 1850s, they pinpointed their target date for complete domination with an agenda called Plan 2000. This has since been revised to 2003. The fiasco election of George W. Bush Jr. to office is a key sign that they are on target. The public lesson of the United States presidential election of 2000 is that the citizens do not vote for anyone. That's right. Remember, Dominion voting. It's all rigged. Even the Illuminati are now finding it increasingly difficult to conceal their plans. And this article was written, going all the way up. This article was written January 5th, 2015. So as you know, they've probably had to revise their plans many times. And the United Nations UN agenda, I think, is what lays out publicly what their plans are. And they have their latest one is 2030. So basically you have here the Illuminati structure is set up like a corporation, and satanic forces are behind all of it. And because these people are sorcerers and they do rituals to stay in communication with these beings and these entities in the inner earth, which are evil. And they have probably are heavily possessed, in my opinion. And these families have stuck to this hierarchy, probably behind the scenes, the reptilian satanic forces really is what kept it all together for years. And they meet once a year and they come up with their evil plans to take over the world. And it goes back centuries, it appears, but really kicked into high gear in the 1800s when they came up with their dates and everything. And there's so many people that are part of these families that actually are whistleblowers that have come out and talked about, what they've learned. And one of those is Jessie Sabodar, and she knows all about the Council of 13 and the Illuminati families and their structure. A lot of people don't believe in these conspiracies because it's so big. This is probably the biggest conspiracy you could ever imagine, but it's real. And as long as you understand the workings behind it and how they're doing it, then things start to make sense. A lot of people look at events in a bubble or in a vacuum, and they don't understand that they need to look higher. They need to look at the even bigger picture outside of the regular structure of society, because that's where these people operate. Once you understand that the Illuminati and the Council of 13 as sort of the ruling body of this evil corporation that runs the world is real, and how they do it through the media, through military, through money and finance, how they operate, then and only then you will understand and believe that this Illuminati is real and very dangerous. And then the other things that you learn about this Great Awakening will start to make sense. So I'm going to play for you a clip from Jessie Zabodar. She was being interviewed by David Zublik about the Council of 13, and she's going to discuss the Council of 13 as she knows it, and in current times today. So here we go.
From what I understand, I've kind of broken down what we call the system, and so I know like the Queen Mothers of Darkness are at the top, and then underneath them you have this huge, when I was a kid, I knew it as the Satanic or the Druidic Council.
Okay.
And in that council group, I know there's over 300 people. I think at the biggest table or groups, I think they have gotten all 300 together at one time or another, but usually they meet on a regular basis in smaller groups. So the council breaks down into separate different councils. And so, you've got like the Council of 13, the Council of 21, the Council of 9, the Council of 5, I think is the smallest one. And so that Council of 13 usually is made up of the heads of the 13 bloodline families.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I understand, you have more than just one member, but I believe, that council does have, where it's the same family individual who's repeatedly tending to that. We call them seats when they sit in a seat. Some of the other, like for the bigger council, each family that holds a seat, like they could be a member of 13. But for the bigger council meetings, they can have individuals who rotate in their family who kind of sit in the seat on their behalf. And the families, they can choose to, continuously rotate that person. They can choose one person from their group to sit for a term. So they kind of, dictate how often they're going to show up, but they are required at least 4 times a year. One of the things that, I tried to point out that was easiest to track who these individuals are, and you can even find the members for the Council of 13 this way, is that the Bilderbergs put up a participation list every year. And, it's my personal experience and opinion that the Bilderbergs are all councilmen.
Mm-hmm.
And you can track the rotations with that. You'll see like who the regular members are. Usually, probably at least for the past 10 years or more, you'll find Jacob Rothschild's name on there. That meant, he sits on one of the higher councils and he's regularly at those meetings. So, you can track from which country who the councilmen for those quadrants are by watching those lists and keeping track of those names and the heads of the country we're representing and the businesses that are representing. The Council of 13 kind of, I'm trying to think how to break it down. They do break down based on the family lines. It's not as easy to explain as people might think, because the ushering in of the New World Order has many different aspects to it. And so you're dealing with the ancient dragon bloodlines when at least that's what they call them, our dragon bloodlines. So, like you have the blue dragon family, which is the Rothschild family. And, their job is to oversee the economic things for the quadrants that they're in charge of. So, that is going to include the businesses, the banks, the corporations, and, they're going to get all of that ready and oversee people and individuals who will get that part of the economy ready for the New World Order. So it's not like you've got one person who's in charge of all the economics or all the finances. They're going to break it down and kind of rule or have their authority that way. I think that's why I, compare them to a board of directors. That's probably the easiest way to explain who they are and what they do. And in regards to the system and their positions within the system. This doesn't include any of their ritual or any of their quotas. It could, you may see some of their humanitarian efforts that come out in that would come out in their relationships with the businesses, the banks, the countries that they align themselves with. So those sometimes can be their humanitarian quotas that they're having to oversee. Example would be like, Oprah works hand in hand with South Africa. George Soros worked hand in hand with the education system and had, huge trusts and funds that were set up to, give scholarships and money to certain students. So.
Are these students going to be recruited into something down the line? There's got to be a price. Satan doesn't give you anything without wanting something in return. So their humanitarian efforts have to come with a price, right?
That's right. So, if you think about it at the deeper level, we've been bringing about some of the truths. What did they do with these educational funds? Why does Satan consider it an acceptable quota? On the outside, it looks like they're just raising money, that they're, lifting up students, and they're, targeting third world countries where, education is not as readily available to kids who are of a low economic status. So it looks like, hey, they're giving these kids a future and a hope, okay? But behind the scenes, what's really going on at these private schools that they're funding and giving these kids scholarships to, there's been stories surfacing at some of the ones in South Africa, of young girls talking about, that they were impregnated for ritual, they gave birth during rituals, the babies that they birthed were sacrificed. So, that's the real cost or price, is that, Satan gets paid back through sacrifices and death of children. And, some of these schools are, in essence, breeder programs. It's easy if you have a student all year long to get them pregnant and to have them give birth before they go home. And in fact, because sometimes with these sacrifices, they, will birth babies early, premature. Some of these girls give birth to a year. So
they get impregnated, and are they told in advance that their babies are going to be sacrificed after they're born?
I can't say that that's usually the case.
Okay.
I think that's really individual.
Situations?
Yeah, there are some witnesses or, who've come forward who do say that that's the case, that they were threatened that from the beginning. And, they would try to get out or save the baby before that would happen and stuff. But I don't think that's always the case. I think, the majority of them end up in a situation where they try to hide it.
Yeah.
Because they don't know how they're drugged. They don't know how they got pregnant. They're not having memories of the rituals. So they're kept in that state where it's, some of them may not even remember or know until years later, when the memories and the flashbacks come back, that was their experience.
I have to assume, since you mentioned Oprah Winfrey's name, that she must be a member of this.
She is, yes.
Yeah. Wow.
I've come out, my experience has been her as a high priestess out of Chicago area originally, or I should just say I experienced her in that area. And then I know she worked under George Soros and was in charge of humanitarian efforts with him.
Humanitarian. It's such a contradiction in terms, isn't it? I mean, when you really think about it.
Think about that. The Masons, the Brotherhood, what is one of their main terms when they take vows and their oaths and everything, it's that they are to show charity And, even the Jesuit Catholics, they use that word a lot instead of love. They will change that word in the new, use it out of the New King James, show charity to your fellow man. So, yeah, it's quite the play on words, I think.
Evil cabal is set up. It's set up like a corporation. You can see the hierarchy triangle here, where everybody is down at the bottom. We're debt slaves serving the system. And then you can see that they use all these different organizations and councils and, just like a corporation, but it's evil. And behind it is Satan and this so-called Draco reptilian, which, maybe what, the fallen angels are, or they're possessing them. I don't know. But this is how the evil system works. Once you understand the hierarchy and how it's set up, then things will start to make sense as to how they do it. So a lot of people get stuck on not buying into, the Great Awakening and the take over the country, the take over the world, that all of this is happening because they don't understand the structure and how they're doing it. And they've been doing it for a while. They've been behind the scenes doing this for a while, for centuries. And some might say all the way back to the beginning, because Lucifer knew the plan. And so he's behind all of it. So hopefully that helps to put things in perspective and help people to understand how this giant conspiracy actually works and why it's real. Thanks for listening. Patriots, I just wanted to say thank you to all of those who've been supporting my channel. I really do appreciate it. I couldn't do it without you. And I have a new payment platform called Stripe if you are interested in supporting the channel with a donation. And thank you again, and I'll see you on the next video.